Here we go. Pierre Duvelleroy and me. It feels like we were at the welcome drinks last night, the njuko welcome drinks. He doesn't need much introduction. I'm sure many of you know him. Registration done backwards. That sounds a bit weird. So what happens? They pay first and then you take their details?
It's almost that. No, not exactly. But so I've been thinking of one way to approach registration differently. And the idea was to spend some time together and present that opportunity or that path to the audience today. And before we actually jump into it, I just wanted to share some. I wanted to share some good news. So you've probably seen recently there's been a 38% increase in activities upload on Strava compared to last year. So for those who are worried about our market, I think we're in a good shape. I think a lot of people are running, and that's very good news. And another thing is, I know when people look at data, most of the time they're like, okay, 38% more activities, what does that mean? Maybe it's just that people are running more. Maybe there's not so many new, runners in our market. Good news is, there's been an extra 2 million new users per month on Strava this year. So, I mean, this is just amazing, This is really, really good news as an industry. Okay, I can see people taking photos, and
they take a picture of you, not the data. Don't worry about that.
But the funny thing is, we're still minus 20%. We could argue, in terms of participation on events, it's a struggle. We all know that. So the problem is really on us, to solve, this equation of how to attract people to events. And registration done backwards, Chris, is something that could start by improving this.
I mean, I find that statistic amazing. So average 26 fields per registration form.
Yeah. So.
And you said some of them have as many. You said at some
over 100.
Over 100 fields.
Over 100 fields. Yeah. It's insane.
So what does that mean then for the participant?
Well, it's a race in itself. It's a marathon in itself just to register.
How long is the average time that it takes people to fill
It's okay. I mean, the average time is around 4 minutes, so it's not too bad, Yeah. But we could do a lot better, I think. Yeah. So 26 fields on average. So I did the work myself. I struggled to find 26 fields. Like after 15 fields, I was like, okay, what else can I add? And I struggled to get there. And that's what we're taking people through today. What it does is induce anxiety. It's stressful. That registering is stressful. The amount of people messing with their first name and last name when they register clearly shows that they're, nervous. There's something generated by our forums that are kind of stressing, So we need to address that. What it also does is that it's extremely boring. Seriously, I mean, it's just, I mean, I think we should register more to our events, because it really is boring. And last but not least, it's completely impersonal.
So what's the solution to that?
So I'm not saying this is the solution that I'm going to show today. It's one thing I've been thinking about, and I wanted to, present to the audience, and hopefully we can talk about that tomorrow, is thinking in terms of personas. So forget your data set, like everything you've done for 20 years. Like Pierre, we've been doing the same thing for 20 years. We just want to keep on doing the same thing. Let's just take a step back, and before building your form, try to identify 3 to 4 personas, maximum, because even 3 or 4 can be a challenge for some of us. And then we'll tailor the registration form for each of them. So personas for today, to give you an example, I've picked 4 personas that, could be anything you want, But for today, we chose to go with Beat My PB, that guy who's coming just to beat his personal record. Plain and simple. No merchandise, no medal, no finisher t-shirt. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the expo and all that. That kind of guy. Finisher. He wants to finish the race. He wants the medal. He wants the merchandise. He wants souvenirs. He wants to spend time at the expo. This is a great experience for that persona. Socializer. Like we could argue around that one, but I don't want to do a race on my own. I prefer to do it with my friends. And so I decided to go with a persona around, these type of people. And last but not least, family trip. I'm coming with my wife and my son. We're going to come for a few days. It's not just about the race. I'm not here to perform. I'm going to spend a bunch of money. So how do we talk to that person, right?
So let's go through each one of those.
What we're going to do is, remember, you got your 26 fields, is we're going to change that a little bit. So now we're going to have 20% of our fields that are going to be common through those 4 personas, but 80% of them that are going to be custom to each persona, which means that I'm going to be able to collect a lot more, interesting information about that participant. Mm-hmm. And this participant is going to be more likely to give me that data because they relate to it.
Comes back to the conversation Caroline was having.
Exactly.
80% of customers come back if they're having a personalized experience.
We're going to be able to ask more detailed questions, get into more details around, okay, training plans, but what do you want? AI-powered training plans? You just want a PDF? You want a coach on the phone to answer your question? Yeah. That kind of stuff, because if you just ask a simple question to all your participants, do you want training plans? What's behind it? Yeah. I mean, what are you offering me? Not compelling enough. So if we look at the registration process for the finisher and the guy who wants to be this PB, they're completely different. On the left side, I'm pushing merchandise. I'm pushing things around, metal engraving, things that they can relate to, because, they're excited about that. This is what they're expecting from you.
And coming back to this morning's conversation, potentially driving revenue, because you're identifying the things that they really want rather than just pushing things that they switch off at.
And it's okay to put 10 fields in the form, because this is what they expect from you.
Yeah.
On the other side, Beat My PB is going to be more around start waves. Which start wave do you want, okay? Can you give me your date of birth, your gender? I don't really need the date of birth for someone who just wants to be a finisher. They don't care about their age group. They don't even know what an age group is. Yeah. They don't want to know about the start wave. You drive anxiety. I remember a friend of mine registering one day and calling me and saying, Pierre, I need to pick a wave. What do you mean? Yeah, I need to pick a wave. What's a wave? I have no idea. There's a bunch of times, but if I take the last one, what's going to happen to me? What do I miss? Someone who just wants to be a finisher doesn't care about the start wave. Mm-hmm. Take that away from the form. Yes, you won't have the same data set from one persona to another, but that's okay.
We might have to get Mike Nishi and Marcel Altenberg to talk about that from an operational perspective, but I'm sure that there's interesting lessons in it, because obviously part of that wave stuff is helping drive the start, but I'm sure there's ways around it without creating anxiety, as you say.
You don't have to ask. You can just manage that in the back end. Yeah. That's fine.
Got it.
My socializer, I'm going to
keep So the point that you're making is, tell us your expected finish time, and you auto create the waves rather than asking them to choose a wave.
Even this expected finishing time, the personal best per persona will know.
Yeah.
The finisher doesn't have a clue.
Might not have a clue.
Don't ask that.
Yeah. Got it.
Just work out the wave for them.
Yeah.
And create finisher waves. You can even market the fact that those are waves for finishers.
Finisher wave.
It's like there's some people behind you, some people in front of you, so you'll never be alone. Don't worry. You'll be fostered by the crowd and stuff like that. Yeah. So socializer, super simple. They just want to get in, plain and simple. You want to know how many people they're coming with, so you can send them referral codes and stuff like that. But that's it. You keep it very simple. And on the family one, well, I'm going big. Okay, do you need childcare? Okay, do you need accommodations? Do you need facilities, facility access for the finish line? Do you want us to help you, to guide you through the course and give you, a PDF to give you, checkpoints where you can see your wife or your husband running, for example? Yeah. So you can ask a lot more information, and that's an important step for them. They're going to take the time to go through this. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And so how does that translate once you've registered? Yeah. You create custom dashboards. So what you do is, on the left side, my finisher gets the 7 tips to become a finisher. He gets the to-do list, because we tend to forget that, but when it's the first time that you go in for a big race, there's a bunch of things you don't think about, and that you want to be, you just want to be taken care of. You want to be onboarded. Yeah. It's a name that I would like in this industry that we use a little more instead of talking about registration would be more like talking about onboarding. Okay,
Love it.
we're starting our journey, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'm putting tips and stuff, I'm going to put the diploma in there. On the other side, beat my PB, I'm going to contextualize the race for him. So here I've put the race course that takes you to a video where you can discover the race course with Kipchoge, for example. You've got the countdown, you've got the start list explained to you. So in this case, there's 43 people in my age group. 80% of them are going to run faster than me. And if I do achieve my expected time, my expected finish ranking will be 231st, for example. The kind of stuff that people want to know.
Yeah.
These guys, the guys who wants to beat their PB, they're going to crunch your start list. You just want to formalize that in a way they can digest and they can relate it to, So
And coming back to the brand stuff, so you've now got data on those different groups that are relevant to a brand to be able to partner with a brand in that space, in the finisher space, in the Beat My PPE, rather than them getting this blanket they're part of the whole event, but they're part of a particular niche within the event.
It opens up a lot of opportunities which you wouldn't have if you
Yeah.
just process the same thing for every single participant.
Yeah.
Socializer is the same. I'm just putting the social feeds and, social buttons and stuff like that. Referral code so they can share, a discount code with their friends. Very simple. They're just here for the fun. They want to take photos and that's it. The hashtag, things like that. And the family thing is where, again, I put more content, spectator itinerary, childcare, VIP finish line access or family access to the finish line, just so they're sure they can see their loved ones. What else did I put? What to do with time frames. So there's a museum visit, it takes 3 hours. There's what did I send? Attend NPW, it takes 2 days. There's a walk, it takes 20 minutes. Things like that so they can organize their weekend at your event. That would change quite a lot of things for them. And that's about it, pretty much. It's what lies behind registration done backwards. And I think if there are 3 very simple takeaways for today, it would be the data set, accepting that you may not get the same data for each persona, and that's okay, because they're not the same people, and they're not coming for your event for the same reasons. You just have to mentally accept that. I know it's hard compared to how things are being done at the moment, but that's number 1. Number 2 is work out these personas. They can change in time. It's fine, It's totally fine. Maybe today is the 4 that I presented and I took them randomly. Maybe tomorrow you'll come up with something else. Fine. And last but not least, let's stop the registration, get rid of the registration word and use something more like onboarding, getting started, a journey to the start line, something a little more positive. When I register, it feels very administrative to me. I'm not super excited when I have to fill a form. So thinking in terms of onboarding and taking them progressively to, what they expect from your event. And you guys have a lot of data. You understand your event. I mean, I don't have to tell you what your audience is. What I'm saying here today is just trying to approach this slightly differently. Understand that when you have 20,000 participants on an event, this is an aggregation of small communities to which you have to talk differently,
And I'm guessing the other point about that, the benefit about that is once they've signed up, forever that they're generally a social runner or they're a PB runner, and your marketing then gets tailored to that. You have that opportunity around the brand engagement around that you're building. And I would assume that many organizations would have personas of their database already, but surprisingly many don't. So it's this one big bucket. It doesn't just start when they enter. There should be personas in your database all the way through. You identified 4. I mean, what's your sense? Is 6 too many, 8 too many, 4 the right number?
Yeah. Somewhere between 3 and 4 would be great.
Yeah.
Except that some of your personas are not going to match with your audience out there, and some people will just not relate and not select any of the options that you offer, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think this is okay. Personas can change along the way. I can be a finisher for a couple of years, and 1 year, feel more like I want to beat my PB. I'm back at it, and that's okay because you can see the progression.
Yeah.
And when you talk to sponsors, I think it's also easier for them to relate. Because what they get in most presentation that I get from events, you know, when they try to attract sponsors, is numbers. 300 volunteers, 1 million, you know, liters of waters, and it's just too much numbers, you know, for me. It's something, you know, I can relate to, something more personal. So our event is about, we have 20% of people that are, you know, really passionate about running and very performance-oriented. You know, a brand would relate to that because this is how they function. They work with personas today. Yeah. Or we have a lot of families. Oh, that's what we're looking at. Okay, we want to talk to these people. What can we do? Oh, so right now we've got childcare. Okay, we want to sponsor that. Because when they pick up their kids, I want them to see my brand, for example. And all of a sudden, you know, you end up with not maybe 2 or 3 sponsors, but maybe plenty. You know? One for something very specific that they can relate to, et cetera, et cetera. So it opens up a lot of doors, I think.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, Caroline. Not working.
Hi, here we are on. Thanks, Pierre. I've found that incredibly refreshing, particularly from a brand perspective, because first and foremost, you're speaking the same language and you're adopting the same rigor that a brand does in terms of their marketing strategy. So if you go into any bank, they're talking personas and they're drilling it down to that level of detail. So I was sitting here thinking, actually, some of those personas could be overlaid into the world of a bank. So totally. I think if event organisers are not doing this as part of their registration, that they should absolutely be adopting this, because then it goes back to that point of knowing your client and then being able to personalise. I guess the other thing that I would consider as part of this, because there would be maybe not significant, but outlay in the first instance to adopt this sort of technology and I guess pivot your registration to this approach. It would be good to then to throw into the mix what additional revenue streams would this then create? Because ultimately what this is about. It's about building your participation. So, I mean, it's not, don't expect you to answer that now, but in terms of pitching this to the industry, I think that would need to be part of the conversation.
And to answer the revenue stream question or topic, I would say that by just taking that approach of building a registration process, your onboarding process, it's going to generate new revenue streams. Because if you think about the family persona, all of a sudden you're like, okay, if I'm a family, if I'm bringing my family to an event, my first question is going to be, okay, how do I handle my son? Like, logistically, like, how is that going to play? How's that going to work? Okay, transportation, can you simplify that for me? Accommodations, I don't want to be miles away from the start or the finish, you know? And if you start thinking like this, the revenue streams actually, you know, you can start to identify them pretty naturally, I think. Yeah. When I was doing this, actually, this is what happened. I was genuinely looking at my personas and I was like, okay, what would I sell to my finisher? It was obvious, it was merchandise. It was, you know, maybe training plans, but it was a tricky one. So I was like, maybe the finisher doesn't care so much about the training plan. It's maybe too complex for them. Okay, I'm stripping it off. Beat my PB. I'm selling the start wave, which most of us don't do. What we do is we grant access to a specific start wave based on an expected finishing time or a proof of result. But what if someone just want to do great and want to start ahead and is willing to pay $30 extra? I'd say just take it. You know, the road is wide enough. It's not one guy that's going to ruin the entire elite, you know, athlete, you know, start. I don't think so. You know, but if they're willing to pay for it, just let them do. You know, put them in the best configuration possible to achieve whatever they want to achieve with your event, because your event is just a mean to an end for them. You know.
You had a follow-up, Caroline? No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Got one more here, Salvador.
I know, I should have put I rewind for the socializer.
No, it's less of a question, it's more of a confirmation what you're saying. You know, we heard all the morning about how do we get more personalized, how can we talk to the audience differently. And all I want to say is that at the end, it's exactly that what we need, so other providers around can also be super personalized. For example, me in the video part, having exactly those personas allows as well to have a journey and a storytelling that is completely different on a digital perspective. But it can be the same for, as you say, hotels and other service providers around it. So I found that extremely important that somewhere we have a starting point, as you have provided here, to get into that personalization. And as you say as well, that will augment naturally the revenues because you're targeting exactly what the person wants. And so all I want to say is that it's great confirmation that's exactly what we need and where we, for example, in my métier, where we need to go as well.
And just to wrap it up, it's not a njuko thing at all. I think any registration company can do it. We've been designed to do that as efficiently as possible. We've got the dashboards and stuff, but pretty much any registration provider could do that. It's just a mindset. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions. Thank you, Pierre. Let's have a round of applause for Pierre. And he's got a race to the airport,
Thank you,
but
Chris.
wonderful to have you here. Thanks so much.
As always,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Pierre.